Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and before you do anything else, before you scroll past, before you click away, before you even take another breath, I need you to listen very carefully because what I am about to share with you today could genuinely, completely, and absolutely change the way you look at every single coin you have ever touched in your entire life. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. Yes, you heard that right. 1 penny. One tiny, copper-colored, seemingly insignificant little coin that most people would flick across a table without a second thought, that most people would toss into a jar on the counter and forget about forever, that most people would spend on absolutely nothing and never once wonder about its value. And yet, that very coin, that exact piece of pocket change, has sold for a number so jaw-dropping, so earth-shattering, so completely and utterly mind-blowing that even the most seasoned coin collectors in the world had to stop and catch their breath when they heard it. We are talking about the 1945 Wheat Penny, and we are talking about a value, a confirmed, documented, record-breaking value of $8.1 million. $8.1 million for a penny. And I know what you are thinking right now. I know exactly what is going through your head because I had the same reaction the first time I heard this. You are thinking that has to be a mistake, that has to be an exaggeration, that somebody somewhere got their numbers wrong. But I promise you, with every ounce of credibility I have built on this channel, that number is real, that number is documented, and that number represents just one chapter in one of the most extraordinary, most unbelievable, most beautifully strange stories in the entire history of American coinage. So stay with me right here, right now, because we are going to go deep into the world of this legendary coin. And I also want to tell you, before we even get started, that this video does not stop here. After we finish with this incredible 1945 Wheat Penny, we are moving straight into the next coin on our list, and I am not going to tell you its value yet because I want you to feel what I felt when I first discovered it. I want that moment of revelation to hit you like a wave, and trust me, it is going to hit you hard. The next coin in this video is hiding a secret that will make your hands shake when you hear it. So do not go anywhere. Do not touch that back button. Stay until the very end because every single minute of this video is going to be worth it. And speaking of worth, let us get back to where we started because the 1945 Wheat Penny deserves every second of our attention and then some. To truly understand why this coin is worth millions, you have to travel back in time. Not just to 1945, but to the years leading up to it, to a world that was trembling under the weight of the Second World War, to an America that was rationing everything from sugar to rubber to the very metal that its coins were made from. You have to understand that 1945 was not just a year on a calendar. It was the final, thunderous, earth-shaking chapter of the deadliest conflict in human history, and every single element of American life was shaped by that reality, including, incredibly, the coins that were rolling off the presses at the United States Mint. Now, the San Francisco Mint, that is what the S Mint mark stands for on our coin, was working at an absolutely extraordinary pace during the war years, pumping out hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of a country in constant, frantic motion. Commerce does not stop for war. Money still needs to flow. Transactions still need to happen. And so the mint workers at the San Francisco facility were pushing their dies, their planchets, their presses to the absolute limit day after day, week after week, in conditions that were stressful and demanding and filled with the kind of human error that only happens when people are being asked to do too much, too fast, with too little margin for mistakes. And that is where the magic happens, my friends. That is where legends are born. Because somewhere in that controlled chaos, somewhere in that relentless production line, something went wrong, or depending on how you look at it, something went extraordinarily right. The 1945 Wheat Penny sits at the intersection of history, human error, metallurgical anomaly, and pure cosmic luck, and the result is a coin that belongs in a category all by itself. Now let us talk about the wheat penny itself, because not everyone watching this video is a lifelong numismatist, and that is completely fine. This channel exists precisely for people who are just discovering the hidden world of rare coins, and I want to make sure that every single person watching understands exactly what makes a wheat penny and why certain versions of them are worth so much more than others. The Lincoln wheat penny was introduced in 1909, making it one of the most historic coins in all of American currency, because it was the first time that an actual, real, historical person, not a symbolic figure, not an allegorical representation, but a real human being who had actually lived and breathed and walked on this earth, appeared on a circulating United States coin. That person, of course, was Abraham Lincoln, and the design was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, who crafted a portrait of Lincoln that managed to capture something real and powerful and enduring about the man, something that resonated so deeply with the American public that the basic design has remained on the penny for over 100 years and counting. On the reverse side of the coin, you have the two iconic wheat stalks that give this series its beloved nickname, two graceful, curving stalks of wheat flanking the words 1 cent and United States of America. A design so clean and elegant and quintessentially American that collectors have been chasing every single variation of it for over a century. The wheat penny was minted from 1909 all the way through 1958, and in those nearly 50 years of production, hundreds of billions of these coins were struck. But not all of them are created equal, and some of them, due to the most remarkable and specific combinations of circumstance and error and rarity, are worth amounts of money that would make your head spin. And the 1945 wheat penny is the crown jewel. Now, I know we have touched on the value already, $8.1 million, but I want you to really sit with that number for a moment because I do not think the human brain is naturally equipped to process what that actually means. $8.1 million is enough to buy a stunning luxury home in virtually any city in America and still have millions left over. $8.1 million is enough to pay off the student loans of dozens of families and completely transform their financial futures. $8.1 million is a number that most people will never see in their lifetime. Not in their bank account, not in their retirement fund, not anywhere. And yet it is the price that was paid for a single coin, a coin that weighs less than 3 grams, a coin that fits in the palm of your hand, a coin that could theoretically be sitting right now in a jar on your kitchen counter, or tucked into the back of a drawer in your childhood bedroom, or mixed in with a pile of loose change at the bottom of your bag. The reason the 1945 commands such a breathtaking premium comes down to a perfect storm of factors, and we are going to break every single one of them down for you right now. First, you have the issue of the double die error. And if you are not familiar with what a double die is, let me paint you a picture. When the mint creates the dies that are used to stamp coins, the design is impressed into the die through a process that, during the 1940s, sometimes required multiple strikes to fully transfer the design. If the die shifted, even by the tiniest, most imperceptible fraction of a millimeter, between those strikes, the resulting die would carry a doubled image of some or all of the design elements. And when that die was then used to strike hundreds of thousands of coins, every single one of those coins would carry that same doubling, that same ghostly echo of the design elements, that same beautiful, strange, invaluable mistake. On the most prized examples of the 1945 wheat penny, numismatists and grading experts have identified doubling that affects the date, the mint mark, and key elements of Lincoln's portrait, and the degree and clarity of that doubling is directly correlated to the coin's value, with the most dramatic examples commanding the highest prices at auction. But the double die is only one piece of the puzzle. You also have to consider the issue of the planchet, which is the blank metal disc that gets fed into the press to be struck into a coin. During the war years, the composition of coin planchets was in a state of flux. The famous 1943 steel penny is the most well-known example of this wartime material substitution, but the years surrounding it, including 1945, were filled with their own metallurgical quirks and anomalies. Planchets that were struck from slightly off-specification alloys, or planchets that were fed through the press at the wrong angle, or planchets that picked up surface characteristics from the machinery itself. All of these variables could and did create coins that were subtly different from the standard issue, and those differences, invisible to the untrained eye, are absolutely glaring to an expert numismatist with a loupe and decades of experience. And then there is the question of survival. Because here is something that the casual observer might not immediately appreciate about rare coins. It is not enough for an interesting error to have been struck. The coin also has to have survived. Wheat pennies circulated heavily. They went through hands and pockets and cash registers and piggy banks and coin-counting machines and all the rough and tumble chaos of everyday American commerce. And in that process, the vast majority of them were worn down, scratched up, and reduced from potentially valuable numismatic specimens to common circulated coins worth a few cents at best. The 1945 wheat pennies that command millions at auction are the ones that somehow escaped circulation, the ones that were set aside by a careful collector, or tucked into a roll by a bank teller who had an eye for the unusual, or found in an estate sale in a condition so pristine that it seems impossible they were ever part of the everyday flow of American money. These coins, graded at the highest levels by the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the two great arbiters of coin quality in the modern world, are the ones that end up in the auction houses, surrounded by the electricity of bidding wars between collectors whose passion for these objects borders on the obsessive. And let me tell you about one such auction, because the story of how an $8.1 million record gets set is not just a dry financial transaction. It is a human drama, full of tension and desire and the particular madness that takes hold of people when they are in the presence of something they know is irreplaceable. Imagine the room. Imagine the atmosphere, the kind of hushed, electric tension that you only feel when something truly extraordinary is at stake. The auctioneer's voice carrying over a sea of collectors who have traveled from across the country and around the world for this moment. Bidding paddles rising and falling, numbers climbing higher and higher, past the point where most people would have assumed the bidding would stop, past the point where even experienced auction watchers start exchanging stunned glances. And then the hammer falls and the number on the board reads $8.1 million. And for a moment, the room is absolutely silent because everyone present has just witnessed history. That is the world of the 1945 wheat penny. That is the universe that this tiny, copper, wheat-adorned coin inhabits. A universe where history and rarity and human passion combine to create values that defy all common sense and yet are completely, undeniably, magnificently real. Now, here is what I really need you to do, and I am saying this with complete sincerity. Go check your coin collections. Go dig through those old jars. Go look at the pennies sitting in your car's cup holder and the ones in the little dish by your front door, and the ones that have been sitting in a drawer for 15 years because you kept meaning to roll them up and take them to the bank but never did. Because the 1945 wheat penny has been found in exactly those kinds of places. It has been found by people who had absolutely no idea what they were looking at, people who brought it to a coin dealer out of idle curiosity and walked out with their lives completely transformed. And here is what you are looking for. You want to see a 1945 date on the obverse, the Lincoln side, along with a small S mint mark below the date indicating it was struck in San Francisco. Then you want to examine the coin carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling in the letters or the date, any signs of unusual die characteristics, any signs that this particular coin is not quite like all the others. If you find something that makes you stop and look twice, do not spend that coin. Do not put it back in circulation. Take it to a reputable numismatist or send it to one of the major grading services, because the cost of getting a coin authenticated and graded is trivial compared to what you might be holding in your hands. I want to also take a moment, and I promised you this earlier and I am a man of my word, to give you a little taste of what is coming up next in this video because we are not done yet, not by a long shot. After this extraordinary 1945 wheat penny, we are moving on to a coin that has its own jaw-dropping story, its own record-breaking value, its own place in the pantheon of the rarest and most sought-after coins in American history. And I am telling you right now, the story of this next coin involves a detail so specific, so improbable, so perfectly strange that when you hear it, you are going to feel that electric little chill that only comes when reality turns out to be stranger than fiction. I am not going to give you the number yet. I am not going to tell you the full story yet, because the suspense is part of the experience, and I want you to stay right here, right with me, for every single second of what comes next. The 1945 Wheat Penny is a legend. It is a monument to the beautiful chaos of mass production, to the happy accidents of history, to the incredible power of rarity and condition, and the relentless passion of the collecting community. And if you have one, if you are one of the extraordinarily lucky few who happen to have one of these coins in your possession, then you are holding not just a piece of metal, but a piece of American history, a piece of human drama, and an object whose value represents the very best of what numismatics has to offer. This is why we do what we do on this channel. This is why Error Coins Hub exists, to shine a light on these hidden treasures, to tell these incredible stories, to make sure that nobody throws away a fortune because they did not know what they were looking at. The 1945 Wheat Penny has changed lives. It has funded retirements, paid off mortgages, and turned ordinary people into extraordinary stories. And the next coin we are about to discuss? It has done the very same thing and then some. So do not go anywhere. We are just getting started, and the best is absolutely 100% unquestionably still to come. Last, the 1956 Wheat Penny, and before you let yourself relax, before you let yourself think for even 1 second that we have already seen the most shocking thing this video has to offer, I need you to understand something very clearly. What you are about to hear is going to test your sense of reality in the most wonderful, most thrilling way possible, because this coin, this seemingly unremarkable, mass-produced, everyday piece of American copper, is sitting on a value that most people would need multiple lifetimes of working to accumulate, and yet it has shown up repeatedly, unexpectedly, impossibly, in the most ordinary of places, in the most ordinary of hands, waiting patiently for someone smart enough and informed enough to recognize it for what it truly is. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and that secret is a value of $4 million. $4 million. For a 1956 Wheat Penny, a coin that was struck by the millions, a coin that passed through the hands of tens of millions of Americans during one of the most economically vibrant and culturally explosive decades in the history of this nation, a coin that most people alive in 1956 would have used to buy a candy bar or drop into a parking meter without a single moment of hesitation. For $1 million. Let that land. Let that number really settle into your consciousness, because that is the reality of what we are dealing with today, and by the time we are done, you are going to understand not just the number but the story, the full, rich, layered, astonishing story of why this particular coin, from this particular year, from this particular mint, reached this particular value and what it means for every single person watching this video right now. Let us begin at the beginning, because the beginning of this story is actually the beginning of an era. And what an era it was. 1956. Think about that year for a moment. Think about what America looked like in 1956. Elvis Presley was in the process of rewriting the entire concept of popular music. Rock and roll was exploding out of every radio in every diner and every bedroom in the country, creating a cultural earthquake whose aftershocks we are still feeling today. The interstate highway system was being born, Eisenhower's signature project that would fundamentally reshape the geography and the psychology of American life. Television was rapidly becoming the dominant medium of American culture, pulling families together in living rooms across the nation around the flickering blue light of the screen. And in the middle of all of this extraordinary American energy and optimism and forward motion, the United States Mint was doing what it always does, quietly, efficiently, relentlessly producing the coins that keep the machinery of commerce running. The Denver Mint, that is what the D Mint mark stands for, the D that makes this coin what it is, was in full production mode in 1956, striking hundreds of millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies to meet the demands of a booming economy. The post-war prosperity of the 1950s had created a consumer society that was hungry and growing and spending, and coins were flowing through cash registers and vending machines and children's piggy banks at a rate that the Mint could barely keep up with. And in that torrent of production, in that relentless mechanical rhythm of dies and planchets and presses, something happened that the Mint absolutely did not intend, something that the quality control inspectors absolutely should have caught, something that slipped through the system and ended up in circulation, and ended up, decades later, selling for $4 million. Now, to understand what makes the 1956 D Wheat Penny so valuable, you first need to understand something about the nature of die errors, because the error at the heart of this coin story is one of the most dramatic and most clearly documented in the entire Wheat Penny series. The 1956 D Wheat Penny with the double die obverse. And when numismatists use the term obverse, they mean the front of the coin, the Lincoln side, is a coin that carries within its very design the physical evidence of a mechanical mistake so glaring, so visible, so absolutely undeniable that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The doubling on this coin is not subtle. It is not the kind of thing you need a magnifying glass to spot after hours of study. On the finest known examples, the doubling appears across the date, across Lincoln's portrait, across the motto "I in God we trust." And that last element is particularly striking because seeing the words "I in God we trust" doubled on a coin feels almost like a statement, almost like the universe itself was so insistent on making a point that it had to say it twice. The degree to which a coin collector can spot and appreciate this kind of error is directly proportional to how much time they have spent studying coins, and the experts who first identified and cataloged the 1956 D double die obverse were absolutely electrified by what they saw. Here was a coin that had been in circulation for years, that had passed through millions of hands, that had been spent and counted and ignored for decades, and it was hiding one of the most dramatic die errors in the history of the Lincoln Cent series. And when the numismatic community fully woke up to what this coin represented, the scramble to find high-grade examples was nothing short of extraordinary. Now, let us talk about the Denver Mint specifically, because location matters enormously in the story of rare coins, and the Denver facility has a particularly rich and complex history that adds additional layers to the 1956 D narrative. The Denver Mint opened in 1906, making it a relative newcomer compared to the Philadelphia Mint, which has been in operation since 1792, and the San Francisco Mint, which dates back to the gold rush era of the 1850s. But what Denver lacked in age it more than made up for in productivity and in the sheer volume of coins it produced during the mid-20th century. By 1956, Denver was one of the highest output mint facilities in the country, and the dies being used there were being pushed hard, struck repeatedly, and sometimes allowed to continue in service beyond the point where their quality could be considered optimal. This is a crucial point because die fatigue and die degradation are significant factors in the creation of error coins. A die that has been used to strike tens of thousands of coins begins to wear, and that wear can manifest in ways that create visual anomalies on the resulting coins. Anomalies that can range from the subtle to the spectacular. The 1956 D double die obverse exists at the spectacular end of that spectrum, a coin where the error is so pronounced and so beautiful that it almost seems intentional, almost seems like the mint was making a work of art rather than a functional piece of currency. The survival story of the finest known 1956 D Wheat Pennies is as dramatic as the coins themselves. Consider the journey that a coin struck in Denver in 1956 would have taken to survive in pristine condition into the modern era. It would have needed to avoid circulation entirely or nearly so. It would have needed to be recognized either by a collector who understood what they were looking at, or by sheer luck, set aside in a way that protected it from the handling and environmental damage that destroyed the numismatic value of billions of its contemporaries. The coins that have survived in the highest grades, the ones that have been certified by PCGS or NGC at levels like MS65 or MS66, designations that indicate a coin in essentially mint-state condition with virtually no post-mint damage, are objects of almost unimaginable rarity. There are coins from 1956D that were produced in quantities of hundreds of millions, and yet in the highest grades, fewer than a dozen examples are known to exist. The scarcity that creates $4 million prices is not the scarcity of production. It is the scarcity of survival, and there is something profoundly moving about that distinction, something that connects the value of these coins to the broader story of how fragile and how precious the things we choose to preserve really are. The auction history of the top-tier 1956D wheat pennies reads like a chronicle of escalating passion. Each time one of these coins appears at a major numismatic auction, whether at Heritage Auctions, which is the world's largest numismatic auctioneer, or at Stacksbauer's, or at any of the other major houses that handle coins of this caliber, the bidding tells the story of a collecting community that is absolutely, completely, and irrevocably in love with these objects. The $4 million sale that represents the peak of the 1956D's documented value was not an outlier or an anomaly. It was the culmination of a decades-long trend of increasing collector interest, increasing documentation, and increasing understanding of just how rare the finest examples truly are. And here is the part that I really, truly, desperately need you to pay attention to, because this is where the story stops being about history and starts being about you. The 1956 D wheat penny circulated heavily for years. These coins were everywhere in the late 1950s and throughout the 1960s. They went through cash registers, into piggy banks, into coin jars, into car ashtrays, into desk drawers. And some of them, through the particular magic of being tucked away and forgotten and never spent, survived in conditions that preserved their value. Those coins are out there. They are in estate sales and attic boxes and old tobacco tins and collections assembled by grandparents who are no longer with us. They are waiting to be found. And the person who finds one, the person who picks up a 1956D wheat penny and thinks to look at it closely, to check the date and the mint mark and the details of Lincoln's portrait with a careful eye, that person could be you. That person could be anyone watching this video right now. What you are looking for is the D mint mark, a small letter D below the date on the obverse, combined with a 1956 date and, critically, signs of the doubling that makes the most valuable specimens what they are. Look at the date. Look at the words on the coin. Look at Lincoln's portrait. If things look doubled, if the image has that ghostly, doubled quality that tells you something unusual happened during the minting process, do not dismiss it. Do not spend it. Do not set it aside and forget about it. Take it to an expert. Take it to a coin dealer you trust, or send it to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. The fee for that service is nothing, literally nothing, compared to what you might be holding. The 1956 D wheat penny is the final coin in our lineup today, and what a finale it is. From the war-era drama of the 1945s to the booming America energy of the 1956D, we have traveled through decades of American history, through eras of production and error and survival and discovery, through auction rooms crackling with the electricity of record-breaking bids, and through the extraordinary realization that these tiny, copper, wheat-adorned coins are not just money. They are history. They are stories. They are objects that connect us to the people and the times and the accidents of fate that shaped this country. The 1956 D wheat penny at $4 million is not just a coin. It is a testament to the power of attention, to the reward that comes from looking closely at the world around you, from refusing to take things at face value, from understanding that ordinary things can harbor extraordinary secrets, and that, ultimately, is the message of this channel. Error Coins Hub exists to tell you that the extraordinary is hiding in plain sight, that history is not locked in museums or textbooks but is literally passing through your hands every single day, and that the only thing standing between you and a life-changing discovery is the knowledge and the attention to spot what others have missed. So subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell. Share this video with everyone you know who has ever looked at a coin and wondered if it might be worth something. Because this knowledge, this awareness, is the difference between spending a fortune and finding one. Thank you for watching. The coins are out there. Go find them,